Welcome to the Blingboard64 assembly video. These are the parts you get in your kit, and we're going to go over those and we're going to build a keyboard. So let's do it. First of all, you've got the Blingboard64 PCB, and you can see that the LEDs are already soldered in place along with the capacitors, so you don't have to do anything to this board. It's already done and ready to go. So we've got stabilizers and stabilizer wires. We have this nice keyboard cable, and notice there's a white wire and the rest are black. The white wire indicates where pin 1 is, makes it easy to figure out where to plug it in. And we've got 2 controller boards. You'll have one of these in your kit, depending on which kit you ordered. This is the super duper board here, and this is the basic board here. So we'll set those aside. Now, gotta have keycaps. So this is a nice Superman scheme, red and blue, and we'll put those on at the very end. We have a bag of headers. There's 2 2x1, actually 2x11 headers, along with 1x3 right angle headers, and these will be soldered into the PCB. We have 12 304 stainless steel screws that are black, and these are used for attaching the PCB to the frame. And speaking of frame, this is the frame. It's 2 pieces. They will interlock together and they'll be part of our assembly. And then I got you a nice high quality screwdriver. It's actually a hardened tip designed for the 304 stainless screws. We'll talk about that in a bit. And we have quality Gatoron switches. We have 2 boxes of switches. So those are the parts that are in your kit, and I guess we'll just set some stuff aside and we'll get started on this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to test assemble the frame, and the reason why we do that is we want to make sure that the frame fits together correctly, and we're going to put the PCB in it and test to make sure it snaps in place too. So the frame itself has a tang at one end and a receptacle at the other end, and these basically are just slide in place like this. So you can see that it slides in place, and then we'll do the same thing to the other end. And we'll just slide it in place like that. So that's it. That's the rough assembly of the frame. Now you'll notice that the frame itself will be slightly bowed this way, and it could be also bowed this way like this, and that's perfectly normal, and we will fix that during the actual assembly itself. So let's test fit the circuit board. Again, we want to make sure that everything fits before we try to start assembling anything. So we're going to put this into the corner like this, both corners. And I'm just going to hold on to the board like this. And now you can see that this, because that's bowed in a little bit, it won't quite fit. So I'm just going to pull just a little bit of pressure like this. So now that wraps, and when you push in the corners, it should just go pop in. And so notice that now all the bowing's gone and it's all straight. And that's pretty much the way it's designed to be done. If you put it flat, it should sit nice and flat. And if you let go of it, if there's a little bit of a bow for the circuit board, that's normal. That gets resolved when the screws are tightened in. So that's it. Want to make sure that this thing fit in here. Now we're going to pop it back out, and we're going to set this aside. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to solder the connectors in place. So we're going to pull these out of our bag like that, and you can see these are the connectors that we're going to be putting in. First we're going to start with the small connectors, the 1x3s, and these are the LED headers, and you can see the LED goes into the spot that's where the diagram looks exactly like the LED connector, and this side as well. Okay, one thing we want to talk about is soldering. So we're going to be soldering from the front side with the LEDs. We're not going to be soldering on the back side at all on this project. So what we want to do is we want to take and we want to put this header in place so it fits like that, and you can see that's where it goes. So we do the same thing with the other side here, and so that's in place. So how are we going to be able to flip this over and without having this fall out? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can put your fingers on each side and then flip it over and try to set it down so they don't pop out, which typically I do. But if you don't like doing that, or if you have a concern with that, there are types of putties that are available. Some are called blue tack. This one's plastic tap. And basically what it is it's a piece of putty. And you just kind of tear it off. You make a little ball. And then you can simply put it over top of the connector like this. And now magically it holds it. You can do the same thing for both sides. So let me get a piece of putty there. When you place this, try to place it on the plastic part, the black plastic, more so than the actual pins of this little header, because it gets hot, it can actually be melted, and you're going to have to wait for it to cool. Otherwise you're going to have a little bit of a gooey mess. So, okay, so that's both of these, and so now they're both ready to be soldered in place. So let's set this down. We'll get a little bit of a zooming in here. But before I do that, I want to make a comment about the solder. So the solder that I use is water soluble, and this is actually the solder that I use. So the flux itself is water soluble, which means that you can wash it off literally with water. So I'll typically use a microfiber and some water, and then you simply just wipe it off. It's kind of like magic. So you don't have the big mess. You don't need chemicals to clean off your solder joints. Okay, let's zoom in on here. And we'll get to here because we're going to be soldering here today. Get my headset out, and so what I like to do typically is I'll make sure this is flat, and I'm going to tack the center pin. So I'm just going to solder just the center pin like that, and I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. So, figure out where this, there it is. So right here, solder this one as well. Okay, so the reason why we do that is that, just like you'll see with the next header as well, we want to make sure that, well, first of all, we're going to get rid of our plastic goo, and if you find that it's sticky, then you can just remove it by tacking it like that. But we want to make sure that the header itself is flush with the board and not sticking out. Not so much of a problem on this particular header, but it's a problem on the main headers we use. So same thing with this one. That looks good. Nice. Okay, so now we can go ahead and solder the remaining two pins, which we'll do real quick. All right. Okay. So now we're going to get our microfiber and some water. So microfiber and water, and we can see where we have to clean. And it doesn't take very long. And you can literally just clean it off like that. And we will look at the other end as well. Okay. And you can see what a nice job it does. It's all clean. Alright, so those are the headers, and now we've got to put the other headers in. So these are the 2x11, and these will go into these locations. The reason why we have two headers is on the 64C and the 64 breadbin, the keyboard connector and the motherboard are on opposite ends of the computer. So by having a header at each end, we makes it easy for the routing of the ribbon cable, or in our case, our nice factory looking harness. Okay, same thing with this one as well. We're going to take our little plastic tap, and I'm just going to put a little dab on one edge, and I'll do the same thing for here. Push this down. Okay, and now you can turn them over and they won't fall. So we're going to solder these. So let's take a look here. Alright, so we're going to make sure that the board is not rocked at all, that it's flush, and you should be able to push down, and there's enough width on this header here that it should simply hold it in place. And we're going to tack a few on this one too, and then we're going to check to make sure that the header itself is flat against the board. This is kind of critical. Okay, so let's go ahead and just tack. We'll tack one end here, and I'll tack the opposite corner here. Okay, make sure you let it cool before you lift up the board. We're going to do this end as well. And we're going to tack this one. Whoops. So I bang the camera. Okay, so both of these are tacked. So now we're going to remove our putty. We're going to try to get all the residue out. There we go. And I'm going to remove the putty out of this one too. Okay. Now we're going to check to make sure that this is flat. It is. That one's good. And make sure that this one is also flat. Looks good to me too. Okay. So at this point we can go ahead and solder the remaining solder joints. And I can fast forward to this in the video so you don't have to watch this. Alright, done with that. So now let's go take a look at the soldering job. Make sure it looks okay. It's kind of hard to tell really with being, yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's clean this up now. Again, we're just using a microfiber and water. That's it. And let's dry it off. And we will flip to the other end of the board. Okay. So for a black circuit board, it is so critical. If you want it to look nice, don't use any kind of a rosin core flux that's, you know, thick, because you can see that this turns out super nice on the black PCB. There's no residue. So let's look at this connector as well. Okay, looks good, and they are flat. So that's it. That's the entire assembly process of the headers. And so now we can move along to the next stage, which is going to be mounting this into the frame assembly itself. Now, I've built hundreds of these, and so I found that the easiest way to do the assembly on this is mount the headers first, like we just did, and then put the PCB into the frame, screw it in place, and then afterwards we install the switches by pushing them in place, and we flip it over, and then we solder all the switches and we clean it. It's much easier to do it that way. The reason being is that if you take a look at the screw holes that are in the frame itself, and I'll show you the reason. I don't do it the other way anymore. I did it a few times, but so let's take a look, and you can see that one of the mounting holes is here, and I'll just take a couple of switches that I've got here, and I'll put them in here, and I can show you the issue. It'll be pretty obvious here once you see it. So now they're in, and look at the space here between the switches and the hole. I do provide a screwdriver that does fit in there. Most screwdrivers will not fit because they're not, skinny enough. But this still is a pain to put a screw in here, try to get it straight and tighten it down. You've got the holes here, you've got the hole here, and the worst one is over here because this one you've got two switches really close together as well. So it's much better that you simply just go ahead and put the frame in first, put the screws in, and that we don't have to deal with the screws after the fact. So we're going to put the screws in right now. So we're going to get our screws out of our bag like this, and we're going to put this back into the frame again like we did in the test fit. So we do this, and we snap in place. You can kind of hear it go click, which is good, and that's that. So there is an order that you want to put these in. First of all, we want to do basically is hand tighten all of these in the screw holes. So we're just gonna do this first. If you can get like a little bit of a turn so they don't fall out if you flip it upside down, that's kind of what you want to do. And so I'll just do this and I'll fast forward the video. Okay, so we've got the screws put in, and what it's going to do is I'm going to tighten this down almost flush to the board, or just barely almost touching. So I recommend we start with the tops and the bottoms. So we're going to do this one first, and I will show you. So almost touching. So you can see there's the screw heads right here, and basically just there's a little bit of room here still. So we're going to do that to all of these, and we can fast forward through this, I'm sure. So now we come to a problem. As you can see, I was trying to do this, and what will happen is these will actually bend a little bit like this, which we don't want. So what you need to do is put something under here to block up this edge, because there's actually a step you can see in the plastic, and that's normal. I basically replicated Commodore's original, or Mitsumi I should say, because they're the keyboard manufacturer for Commodore, their little step they had here. And so what I ended up doing is I actually made a 3D printed part that you can print yourself. It actually pops in place here like this, and this provides you something you can push down firmly on without having to bow this plastic. So I've got one for each side here, so I can put these down and I can tighten them this way. If you don't want to use a 3D printer and make your own, then what you can do, literally just block it up, put something under there so that when you push down on it, it's not going to cause it to separate like this. So alright, we'll continue on. Okay, I should stop here and tell you that if the screws were put in at an angle slightly, because you can see like this screw is slightly at an angle here, it's fine, because when you start tightening them, the screws will actually straighten straight out. They'll go down in here. So if they're at an angle to start with, not a big deal. Don't make them too severe, obviously, but it'll actually move the screw over and it'll go straight down. Okay, so I like doing these first, both sides here, getting them down, and then I do the four corners last typically. Okay, got that done. Now what we need to do is do the final tightening, and we're going to tighten the tops first. So these two, and then we're going to do the bottoms, and then we'll do here, and the four corners last. You might want to leave the block on here, or keep whatever you have blocked up under there when you do this part. It'll be elevated above. You can see there's actual space here. So for the final tightening of the other screws, other than the two here, I pull the blocks off so it sits flush. Let me do that actually now. I'm going to do it like this so we know it's flush. And push down. Now when you tighten this, you're going to tighten it to the point where there's just a tiny bit of deforming of the PCB. You can kind of see that's kind of almost like a divot where you're pushing the head into the board. That's as much as you want to go. Okay, got it. So now you can see how much deforming there really is in here, and you know this is super strong, and when you lay it flat it's absolutely flat, and that means you've done it right. So congratulations, that's the frame assembly. So now we've got the frame all built, and the next step we are going to be putting in the switches. So the switches come in a box. You just basically remove this little seal, you pull the box open, and we're going to find the key switches. Notice that there's two missing. This is normal. So each box contains 33 switches, and there's 66 switches total used in the keyboard, which is why you've got two boxes. So I happen to have tens of thousands of these raw. So I am going to pull from a bin instead of stealing them out of a box. So I've got thousands of these per bin. So putting these in is pretty simple. These are a 5-pin switch. And we'll zoom in a little bit. So it's a 5-pin switch, and the reason they call them 5 pins is that there's a center body pin, there's 2 guide pins, and there's 2 metal pins. So that's 5 pins total. Notice that these have a bezel, and if you look at the bottom of it, you can see there's actually a slot in here, and that's where the LED sits up inside of the switch itself, and the bezel is used to transfer the light. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put it over top of there's a better angle, and you can see that it won't fit by itself. Just by pushing in, we can actually apply a little bit of pressure, and then it goes snap, and now it's in place, and you can turn it upside down and you can move this around. It should be fine. So same thing, you just grab each one of them in sequence, and they'll make a little snap noise. Typically they won't go upside down, which is good. They're basically keyed. If you try to put it upside down, it's not going to happen. And the idea behind this is that you're going to be pushing these completely flush so that they're flush with the board. You don't want the switches at an angle or raised off the board, otherwise your keycaps are going to look pretty funny. So I'm going to fast forward, I guess, and I'll put these down here so you can watch the process. Okay, we're back, and I've got all the switches put in place, and you want to check them all just to make sure that none of them are up. If you want, you can actually flip it over and you can push down on the PCB and you can seat the switches. This is safe to do. Just don't touch the pins on the back side. Put your fingers in between the empty spaces, and you can just double check again and make sure everything's correct. And look at different angles. You'll know if you see one that's popped up, then you know what's wrong. So this looks good. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the soldering iron again, and we're going to have to solder these pins. And you can see what needs to be soldered here. I'll point it out. So it's this pin and this pin. Don't bridge across here. These are bridges designed for the Blingboard with the basic board. We have to bridge all those. We're going to have a separate video for that. So just solder the pins here, and I'll show you that real quick. Okay. These don't need much heat because they're a thin pin, and that's it. So we can take a look at. So we're going to solder every single one of these throughout the whole thing, and I think I'm just going to do that, and I will come back. Okay, we're back and cleaning up the last little bit of residue here with our microfiber and our water, and yeah, it looks good now. So we can see where we started. All of these are they look good. Nice. Okay, so that is basically all the soldering that we're going to be doing. And the next phase is pretty simple. We're going to assemble the stabilizers and snap them in place. So we need to grab our stabilizer bag, which is this bag here. And these are a little bit tricky to do. Luckily we only have to do them once. So basically you're going to have a plastic body and the inner piece for it. And these only go one direction, and when you insert in here you'll know, because when you go to pull this up you can see like I can't pull any further, so that's backwards. So flip it around, you'll know, because then you can see that you can do this with it. So that's the proper way. So we'll take a wire, and notice that there's a slot in here. You can see the slot here, and notice that there's actually a little channel here. This is where the wire is going to snap in place. So what we're going to do is put this into here. What I like to do is look at the bottom side, because what we want is the wire not to be over top of it. We want the wire to go inside of it, because that's how it's supposed to go, and look like that. So you can see the wires inside of here. And you'll know if it's correct because when you move the wire up and down, the post will come out of the center body as well. And then all we're going to do is, you see the little channel here, we're going to push, and you can hear it snap in place. And you know it's right because if you twist the wire like this, you're going to see that this will go up and down. So that's built correctly. So we're going to try the other side as well. Same thing, we're going to grab the body and we're going to put the centerpiece in, and we're going to see if it pulls through. Of course it doesn't, because that's my luck. And flip it around, so that pulls through. Now we got to be careful in this one because we've got to build it opposite of that one. So what we know that this one's on this side, so we have to put the wire through this side. So we're looking for our slot, which is here. So we know that it goes in here. So now we'll make sure that it's inside of it, and it is. We've got the wires inside of this in the slot. And then we look at this side to make sure that we haven't, we're going to snap on this side. We don't want to snap it upside down, it'll be wrong. And we're going to push this in place. And that's it, that's our stabilizer. So there's one mistake that I made during the design. And it's because I used a different stabilizer. The ones that came in for the final version were not the same. And so what we're going to have to do is that we're going to have to grab this and we're just going to put a little bit of a bend, just a little tiny bow like this. The reason being is that on the keyboard itself there is a capacitor that is behind the switch here, and that's where the wire sits. And if it touches the capacitor on both sides, it will actually short the capacitor out, which is the power and ground. But putting that little bow basically make sure this is level, or is not perfectly level or recessed, it's above it, and it's fine at that point. Like I said, the other wires had a different bend angle, so it cleared that before. Alright, so how do these snap in? Well, the rule of thumb is that the wire for the spacebar goes above, the wire for the return key goes below. So above and below. And you notice that there's, it's hard to tell on here, there we go. There's a little block in here that will actually slide inside the hole. And the other side is a clip assembly that pushes in and then springs out. So what we need to do is on the large hole here is where the little piece goes in place. And see if I can show you a better angle here. So this actually goes into the large hole like this, and you can set both of them over top of the hole this has to go into. And what I like to do is just grab the sides of it, and with it definitely inside of this hole here and push backwards, I just grab it and I kind of wiggle it and push, and you can hear it go snap. And now that's in place. And then we'll do the same thing for this one too. Make sure it's all the way at the back of it, which it is, and then we'll wiggle and push and then snap. So if you pull up on this side should also go up. So you can, that's how you know if the stabilizer is built correctly. And if you take a look at the clearance of the bar to the capacitor I was talking about, there's tons of clearance now, so it's not a big deal at all. So that's it for that one. So let's go and build the one for the return key. So again, we're going to put the body piece in, and again it's backwards. So okay, and then this is a very short stabilizer wire, and we're going to find the slot, which is right here. And we're going to push it into the slot, and I'm going to make sure that it's inside, which it is, and then I can just snap. You notice that the wire is really thick on this one. This is the same one we had before, but that's why we had to do the bend. They changed the wire. Okay, one last time. We're going to get this one lucky. Come on now. I'm guessing not based on that. Nope. Okay. So I will flip it around. Okay, again, we're going to hold the plastic. We're going to find our slot. We're going to put it into the slot. And we're going to make sure, see, this one's over, so that was wrong. So I need to back this out and then there. So you can see that if I pull this up, you can see that it's inside of the plastic part. Okay, same deal with this as we did with the spacebar one. We got to make sure that these sit opposed from each other. Actually, it's going to be this way on the keyboard. So I need to snap this one in there. So now they're both snapped in, and we can do a quick test here. We pull one, They both go up. Okay, so this is the opposite. So you notice that the large holes are at the bottom. So the large holes in the bar goes into here. Like that. So that's in. And these are a little bit trickier because it's really close. So you have to kind of wiggle and push as well. If I can wiggle and push. We have to set this down like normal. Oh, so it wasn't all the way to the back, so that was the problem. I didn't have this slid all the way to the back. So there, now that one's snapped in place. Make sure you slide this one all the way to the back. And you kind of wiggle and you push. Maybe. There, okay. That one's clipped in place too. And again, you can just pull this up, and you can see that it's functioning. Okay, that's it. So that's the complete assembly of the Blingboard64. Only thing left to do are the keycaps. Keycaps are very, very simple. Let's do a few examples here. It's like the 6 key. Where's that go? That's left arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's where that should sit. Alright, so if you notice that the keycap has a little plus in it, that actually goes in over top of the stem. So we're going to push down straight, and we're just going to put a little bit of pressure, and you can see it'll start actually guiding itself down. So like right now it would work, except it's really too high. And then we want to push until it goes click. You hear a little click. There's a lock actually inside the keycap that locks it in place. And that's it. So all of these get to put on this way. The only ones that are kind of tricky are the space bar and the return key. So I'll go over those real quick with you. So the return key, same kind of idea. There's 3 little inserts here, little post receptacles. And what I like doing is looking at an angle like this. I can see it go over top of the yellow stem, and then I'm going to push down slowly, straight down, and then keep pushing and pushing, and then click. All 3 will click at the same time. That's how it should be. Same thing with the space bar. The space bar is quite a bit wider. Make sure you put the space bar on the right direction. The beveled angle, as you can see, it should go like this. So the beveled angle should be towards the back, a little more straight up and down. And you can see the top angle is like this. That's how it should be. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to line this up, and we're going to push it down just a little bit so it starts to make contact. And you can see it's going to make contact with each of the stabilizer stems. And I like basically holding down over top the stabilizers just a little bit to the left and right, more towards the center of them, and then basically just push straight, and then finally click. There. And you'll know if it's right because you can push down on either side of it, and it's perfect. So that's it. Basically, the function keys are identical, the shift keys are identical. The Blingboard64 uses the center position for everything. So on the shift key, there's not offset like Commodore's is. And same thing with the function keys, they're dead center. Mitsumi did make a keyboard for Commodore for the Educator series, the PET that had the 64 inside of it. And all of those keyboards were centered like this. I actually have one of those keyboards. So let's put a shift key on. Click. It's easy. So I'm going to put all these keycaps on here, and then we'll come back and wrap this up. Alright, we've got the keyboard, except for one small detail. I need to put this in here. Alright, let's get this. Last but not least. Thanks, Commodore. Alright, we've got the keyboard completed. It's all soldered, looks good. You can go back and you can clean off your fingerprints if you want to. There's a few here and there for me doing this, but yeah, for the most part, it looks great. Nice and sturdy, types great.